Today I was going to change the bypass hose on this Mini. The bypass hose is situated between the water pump and the cylinder head, just at the back of the block here. Unfortunately, when I went to look at the job a bit further, I discovered that the radiator was actually loose, and this was due to the top hose, which somebody's put a top hose on that's a bit too big, and it's stressing out the top of the radiator. You can see now that I put the top hose on there that there's a lot of extra on the top hose that's been fitted, and what's happened, this has been stressing the top of the radiator on the solder. So you can see the radiator now is broken away and the whole thing's flopping around in the mount, which is not good. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'll take off the top hose first. There's no water in it, we've lost that already out of the bypass hose, so there's no water whatsoever in the radiator, so I don't have to worry about draining it. It's done it by itself. Okay, before we start doing any work, what I'm going to do is fit my Dr-Doolin fender cover, especially made for the Mini. And then we're going to commence removing the top hose. I'm going to undo these two nuts that are on the thermostat housing and the two bolts that go into the shroud for the radiator, so I can take this top plate off. The next thing for me to remove is the shroud. There's 4 bolts, there's one here, one further down, and the same on the back, and then there's one on the bottom that we'll worry about later. But I'm just going to take the top part of the shroud off for now. Now you can see I can take the top frame off. Now we're going to be able to access the bypass hose. Okay, I'm just removing the bottom hose. I've undone all the clamp and everything. I'm just moving that back out of the way. And you can see now the bypass hose. So I'm just going to start undoing my clips. Now the first thing I did to try and get this bypass hose off is undo the Jubilee clip or the hose clamp, take it off completely. Then that enables me to get my screwdriver in and I don't have to worry about the hose clamps getting in the way. So now with a bit of fiddling, a bit of messing around, give it out, I'll just get one end off it, pull it up out of the way. And now you can see what our problem was. The hose has got quite a split in it. Is that better? The hose that I'm going to put on is one of the easy fit ones that's designed to go on without removing the head or the water pump. So you'll find it's very flexible. They're not totally reliable, these. I've know that sometimes they split because I don't think the other one I just took off was all that old, but really the only way you can get them on is by using a softer kind of hose. So what I need to do, I have to turn the hose completely in half like that, and then I put each lip of this over the end of the pipe that's sticking down, and then we let the hose go and it slides in. Now to get this on with the clips, the trick is get your little hose clamp and make sure the hose clamp will go over the concertina part here in the middle on the pair of them, and then get some petroleum jelly, stick it on the end of here in the inside of there, and the same on the other side, and then rub some round on the actual pieces you're going to try and put it onto. Now what we do, first we put our 2 hose clamps on. Just move the heads out of the way, and then with our hose fold it in half and put it in position there, and the top one is the hard one. Get it over that little cut first. Now when you want to put your hoses up, you can just slide this up over the top and fasten the top one, and the same with the bottom. Now we have the bypass hose installed. All you have to do is do everything backwards. You just need to replace everything that we took off, which was the bottom hose, the top end of the shroud, and then put our support on, and then put your top hose on, presumably the correct size. Unfortunately, what I have to do now is remove the radiator. So in order to do that, I'm going to take the grill out, remove the grill. On this one it doesn't have the quick release on, it's still got the original screws on. So I'm going to take them off, and then you'll be able to see the mounting underneath that I need to get to. Now we've got the grill off, that gives me access to the 2 bolts that hold the bottom of the radiator to support on the bottom of the engine mount. But before we do that, I'm going to undo the fan and remove the fan off. Okay, I'm on my last bolt now. Just going to take out. Okay, I'm going to take the bolt out of the fan first. And I'm just going to move my fan forward very carefully, lift it out of the way. These are the 2 bolts that we have to undo. I'm removing the wheel on the left hand side so that I can get access to the bolts on the mount, and you can see that's where the hole is here. Now that I've undone the bolts on the bottom, I can lift out the radiator complete. Now the frame on the radiator is looking definitely a little bit worse for wear. You can see the frame is going to come removed right off the radiator with the side pieces that are actually supposed to be soldered to the radiator on the sides. Now you've seen how the soft bypass hose goes on, how you can bend it in half and slip it into place. Normally you do that with the radiator in place to save you taking the radiator out and the water pump off. In this particular case, on this car I've had to remove the radiator already, so it's not but a few more minutes work to slacken the belt off and take the water pump on and fit a bypass hose on that's a lot harder and a lot more substantial than the ones that I bend, but it's more labour. Anyway, that's what I'm going to do now. Alright, to remove the fan belt, I'm going to start off by undoing the adjustment on it, and first thing I'm going to undo these 2 bolts and these 2 underneath here. You don't have to undo them completely, just make them slack, and then we push the alternator down and the belt will go slack and we take it off. As you can see, I took the 2 top bolts out on the alternator and just dropped that down here. What I'm going to undo now is the 4 bolts on the water pump, and then pull the water pump back, put my hose in, slide it all in together, and then bolt the whole lot on. I have the 4 bolts taken out of the pump. It's not coming off, so we just got to give it a few taps, and off she comes. Right, I'm ready to reassemble it now. You can see that I've cleaned all the surface up there where the old gasket was. So I'm just going to put my new gasket on there. And then we leave the clip on, don't forget to put the clip on the hose. And then we put the hose on the bottom and we put the hose in position first. I've put the water pump back on now. I used fresh spring washers on it and stuff. And cleaned it all up before I put it back and checked the pump, and the pump was okay. It wasn't leaking previously anyway. But if the pump's a little bit suspect for the price of them, by the time you've taken all this lot apart, you might as well put the pump on. But in this case, the pump's in good condition. So all I'm going to do is put all the rest of the stuff back on that I took off the radiator and put my alternator back in place with my fan belt, my fan. And once I've done that and I've got everything back together, top it up with coolant, and then we'll pressure test it. That'll be it. On this bottom mount for the radiator, instead of struggling with a little hole in the side trying to put my bolts through, what I did, I took an inch long 5/16 and screwed it from the bottom and pulled it up, and then I screwed the nut through here, and then I tightened it up with a crow's foot on the bottom. So now when I put the radiator in, all we need to do is lower down the radiator onto the two bolts. I can put my hand through the hole in the side of the inner fender and just guide it onto the bolts, which is a lot easier than trying to hold the radiator in place while we actually put the bolt through the radiator and then find the holes to thread it into. I've put the fan on now and I've tightened up the fan belt, so now we've got to put the top piece of the guard on. When we put this in, slot it over the top, one of the things I forgot to mention is make sure that the bolts that you put in here are no longer than 1/2 inch at the most. Because if they're too long, they'll go through and they'll stick inside the radiator and they'll actually damage it. They'll cause a leak and they'll cause other problems as well. So make sure that this is only a very small bolt that you put in, and that's on all 6 of them that go up the side. Anyway, we're just going to fasten this into place. I've topped up the radiator with coolant. I've got my top hose on and connected everything else. So now I'm going to pressure test it. Put my tester on the top and pump it up. The cap on this goes up to £9, so that's what I go up to, and it seems pretty good. And everything seems to be okay. I don't seem to have any leaks anywhere. Nothing's happening. So we should be good. So that's it. Just put the cap on. It should have a £9 cap on it. And I've got my overflow pipe in place, so that's about it. Just got to put the grill back in and we're done.